Hi, my name is Bernie Williams and welcome to That 4x4 Show. And to start off the program, we revisit an age-old deal between Land Rover and Land Cruiser.
But first, let me briefly introduce you to my co-presenter, Hannes Krobler. Hannes is a multiple SA rally and off-road and circuit racing champ, and he's competed in the legendary Dakar Rally. He used to build his own championship-winning racing cars, and he retired from motorsport in 2012 after more than 30 years in the game. Right, so let's see what Hannes has got to say about these two classics.
The Land Cruiser and the Defender are legends in their own time. They've both been proven in Africa, built for Africa. Which is the better one of the two? This Landy takes my memories back to my army days. My arm is pushing against the window here. My left leg is numb from the clutch. Feels like I just did a workout in the gym. Welcome in the world of the Land Rover Defender.
It started in 1948 in England when Rover designer Maurice Wilks started experimenting with surplus aluminium panels from the army, which he fitted to a Jeep chassis. Rover soon developed their own chassis and added their own engines, and the legend that would become the Land Rover was born. Today, the Land Rover brand is owned by Indian industrial giant Tata, and you can have a Land Rover in lots of shapes and sizes, from the basic Defender to the ultimate SUV, the Range Rover. So you can really say that the Land Rover brand is, well, in vogue.
The Range Rover and the Evoque is all flash and dash. But if you want to be part of the old school of cool, this is it.
This is the Defender 110 crew cab, and this one has been dollied up some. Basically though, it's a double cab with a reasonably tiny load area that can carry 1.1 ton. But this bakkie is almost 4.7 meters long. So thanks to the small load area, there must surely be acres and acres of space on the inside, right?
Not really. The front is okay, especially with the Recaro seat here in the front. But the back is not so good.
Ah, those beautiful Recaro seats. They certainly are stunning to look at and even reasonably comfortable to spend lots of time in. But they also cost a right penny. They will set you back 70,000 Rand each. That's right, 70,000 Rand for one seat. Sarias. And the cool front seats are not the only aftermarket accessories on this Defender. This unit has been wrapped in a matte black vinyl, which adds 20,000 Rand to the asking price. The wheels and snorkel and side steps and the roll bar are all extras too. Just the wheels and tyres add 40,000 Rand to the kitty. In total, this Land Rover is fitted with a staggering 280,000 Rand's worth of aftermarket tricks.
This is not really a workhorse anymore. This is more like a pleasure horse.
Here's the thing, a stock standard crew cab, which is a lot more truck than this unit, retails for 461,400 Rand. So if you add all the cool accessories, you end up at almost 750,000 Rand for a truck. Yes, it's a very cool truck, but it's still a truck.
This Landy is powered by a 2.2-litre Ford turbocharged engine. Makes 90 kilowatts of power, 360 newton meters of torque. You know what? It actually feels good.
The crew cab's interior is not a plush environment with a myriad of luxuries, but it ticks all the basic boxes. So you get air conditioning, a CD sound system that you can actually hear, electric front windows and 2 airbags. There's also a handy cubby box between the front seats.
I was really surprised by the Land Rover's comfortable ride. Let's go and see if the Land Cruiser can match it. The Land Cruiser double cab is definitely not the normal double cab. The ride is a little bit harder.
The Cruiser also has a bit of history behind its name. Toyota had been experimenting with 4x4s for some years, but their big break came in 1950 during the Korean War. The US Army required a light military truck, so Toyota created the Toyota Jeep VJ. The legend had been born, and many of the earliest examples, like this 1973 model, still run today.
This is not a Nathaniel bakkie. This is a bakkie motor bakkie.
Yep, the Cruiser's reputation for being as hard as nails is not to be taken lightly. It can also carry 1.2 tons, and the Cruiser's buck is notably more spacious and practical than the Defender's bin. But despite this 5.1 meter long Cruiser being almost as lengthy as an aircraft carrier, the interior is not quite as spacious as you'd maybe expect, especially not in the back. Up front, it's a bit better, with more space and even some modern gadgets for the instrument panel.
Don't think this is a Comma lounge suite on wheels. This thing is built for Africa.
Oh yes, it is. This Cruiser pickup is powered by Toyota's V6 petrol engine that delivers 170 kilowatts and 360 newton meters of torque. Even though it is a workhorse, this bakkie can really cover ground fast.
Toyota came up with a brilliant safety plan to put a V6 in here with lots of power and to drink so much fuel that the driver have to stop often to have a rest.
The Cruiser's cabin, which was recently enhanced following the fitment of an infotainment system that also gets a reasonably useless GPS navigation feature, appears to be more airy and spacious than the Defender's. It's not really that. You also get 2 airbags, but here in the rear seat, passengers have the luxury of electric window winders.
This test vehicle is even fitted with some extras like the bull bar, the roll bar, some bigger tires to make it even better.
Oh well, every silver cloud will have a few dark linings, and besides, this is the King of Africa. So the 463,900 Rand asking price for the standard model, plus another 60,000 Rand for the accessories, doesn't seem that excessive. Okay, maybe just a little, but not that much.
Oh my bucket! I need some fuel again. My wallet is quite a bit lighter after that. The Land Cruiser owners told me that I have to switch the Land Cruiser off at the filling station, otherwise it won't fill up.
Daihatsu Terios is the ideal little 4x4 for the tough economic times we live in. In true Japanese fashion, it's amazingly efficient and practical, reasonably well priced, and it sips just 7.9 litres of petrol every 100 kilometres. The 1.5 litre 16-valve engine is equipped with variable valve timing, and it delivers 77 kilowatt of power and 140 newton meters at 4,000 revs per minute. Now, it's certainly not a pocket rocket, but it gets there in an efficient and practical manner. Oh yes, and it's even badged a Toyota in some overseas markets, because Daihatsu is owned by Toyota. So it's all, well, very practical and efficient and Japanese.
It's efficient, but I can hardly imagine an uncle playing for a local rugby team and has 2 cases of beer over a weekend driving one of these. I must confess, I really think this is a chick's car.
Yep, you just can't imagine that die-hard cruiser bakkie fanatic swapping his Toyota for one of these numbers. That would be like trying to get Springbok forward, the Beast, to play the flute in a symphony orchestra. Still, it is a 4x4. It has a center differential lock, and it has a claimed 200 millimeters of ground clearance.
Okay, so in theory, in spite of the fact that there's no transfer case, it should be okay in an off-road environment.
Hey, it's pretty good with the center diff lock engaged. Sure, you have to use a bit more momentum because there's no low range, but with a relatively short first gear, a torquey engine, and a surprising amount of articulation, little Terios is clearly not scared of a few obstacles. In fact, it's actually a lot of fun.
Well, it's kind of okay, but I still think it's a girl's car. It's like dating the hottest chick in the office and then she insists on taking her 75-year-old grandmother along on this romantic date.
That's why the vast majority of Terios cars sold here are bought by women and not men. And also why the vast majority of Terios 4x4s will never ever see a track like this. But what if you are a man and your heart is set upon a Daihatsu Terios? Wouldn't it be really, really cool to have the option of a manned-up Terios that can really, really go the off-road mile too?
This is a turbocharger, and we're going to put it in that.
Okay, and then we're going to do the suspension, put on some terrain tires. At the end of the day, we're going to take Nathaniel out, put Rambo in there. Even your uncle with the tattoos and the muscles and the steroids, he'll want to try that. Watch next week as the Daihatsu has its turbo installed. So do tire pressures really affect your fuel consumption? We did a little test. The motoring myth is straightforward. The more the pressure in a tyre, the less rolling resistance, which equals less fuel used. So we headed off to the N4 toll road west of Pretoria, where we would do 3 tests. First, we would deflate the Toyota Hilux Bucky tyres to 1.5 bar and drive at a constant 120 kilometers an hour over almost 100 kilometers. Then we would do the same exercise with the manufacturer's recommended 2 bar pressure, as well as an overinflated 3.5 bar. First up is that 1.5 bar then. Okay, so we've completed our first run, 95.5 kilometers to be exact, at a tire pressure of 1.5. And to be honest, you can feel the difference at 1.5 bar. You can feel it on the handling, on the steering, especially when you have to turn tight and so on. And we are now back up to the recommended tire pressure, which is 2 bar. And we're doing the same run now at a constant 120 kilometers an hour, the same 95.5 kilometers. But are tire pressures really important? Like, at all? Well, for starters, if you're running at underinflated tire pressures, you get an excessive heat buildup, especially in the sidewall. And I know we talk about it, a burst tire, but there's no such thing as a burst tire. The only time you get a burst tire is when you actually inflate it until it pops. What you experience when you have a burst tire running at underinflated pressures is what we call a sidewall failure. It's the separation of the layers of the tire, and that's where the burst tire syndrome comes from. And that normally comes from running tires at underinflated pressures. So try and stay with the recommended tire pressures of the manufacturer. Right, so it's finally time to hike up the pressure to a very, very high 3.5 bar. Okay, so now we're busy with run number 3. We have now inflated the tires to 3.5 bar, and might I say, not a comfortable ride at all. So far we've got a very interesting scenario here, but I don't want to jump the gun here, so let's wait and see what happens after the 3.5 bar trip. Don't try this at home, we train professionals. And that is that. Time to tell you the results and see if there is any truth in this motoring myth. With the tyres inflated to that low 1.5 bar mark, the Hilux sipped an average of 10.7 litres per 100 kilometres. With the pressure upped to the recommended 2 bar, the consumption improved ever so slightly to 10.4 litres per 100 kilometres. And lastly, with the pressure at an uncomfortable and unsafe 3.5 bar, the consumption was further reduced to 10.1 litres per 100 kilometres. Theoretically, it's true. The more the pressure, the less fuel you'll burn. So in conclusion, does it really make a difference? Not really. You have to inflate your tires to such incredible levels that it's just not worth it, and it's not safe either. So rather stick to the manufacturer's specifications. A BMW X3, 4.4 litre V8 motor and 300 horsepower. I mean, really? Meet the Retirement Fund Solutions BMW X3 Class SP race car. It's a BMW X3, But it's also not a BMW X3 at all. The past few years, the BMW has been competing in the National Off-Road Championship, winning a few races along the way. The only quality this purpose-built racing vehicle has in common with its urban civvy street BMW compatriots is that X3 name. This is a purpose-built racing machine. It's a space frame design with 2 shock absorbers per wheel, combined with lots of suspension travel and a BMW 4.4-litre V8 engine delivering about 300 horsepower under the fiberglass bonnet. This BMW is all about going as fast as possible on a rough dirt road, like in 180 kilometers an hour fast over ruts and rocks and around corners. A 6-speed sequential gearbox sends the 300 horses to all 4 wheels, and there are limited slip differentials at the back, in the middle and in front. It is about as economical as an Airbus A380, as noisy as a stadium full of vuvuzelas, and as comfortable as a metal coach fitted with spikes. It's also worth about 2 million rand, but that excludes a maintenance plan, and you don't get a warranty either. But hey, who cares about details like warranties and maintenance plans, especially if your X3 sounds this good and goes this fast on a dirt road. The Hennops Off Road Trail is situated west of Pretoria near Hartbeespoort Dam. The venue provides a blend of easy, moderate and difficult driving tests, suiting a variety of hardware. The trail kicks off with an axle twister test, not exactly the cup of tea for our Land Rover Defender Kalahari, which doesn't have any differential lockers or traction control. All the difficult obstacles have escape routes, but our Landy pushes on regardless and makes it through. The trail winds onto a very badly rutted obstacle, one that in wintertime is the reserve of vehicles with diff locks and plenty of clearance and drivers with a careful aim and some experience. Also on the menu is the dongos. There are no big rocks here, but the deep dongos and ruts can get extremely tricky in certain conditions. There are a few more rocky climbs on the route too, like this bad boy that will require some serious 4x4 hardware to negotiate all the way over the crest without incurring any damage. The good news is that after a long day on the trails eating dust, you can also tan a piece of cow in the picnic area. Here you'll find toilets and showers and a cool entertainment area where you and your buddies can take a break from the 4x4 action. Just around the corner from the picnic area is Sekwe Gat, or the Hippo Hole. In the rainy season, this crossing can be quite daunting, but in the winter months the water level is okayish. Even the instructions for this crossing are quite, well, entertaining. Overall, there are various routes to choose from, ranging from tame and quick to tough and long. The worst obstacles rate as 4 out of 5, and you definitely need a 4x4 with low range, plenty of clearance, and no flashy side steps to conquer those. The trail is open on weekends and public holidays, and it costs 220 Rand per vehicle. In each episode, we are going to give you some driving tips, and this week, to start off, we're trying to get the basics right. How do we do that? Seating position. Driving off-road is not rocket science, but let's start with the basics. The actual driving position. All right, before we start driving, the most important thing that you can do is get your driving position correct. And absolutely correct. This is vital. when driving in an off-road position, or you're going to be driving off-road, keep your thumbs outside the steering and your hands in a 10-2 position. And the steering, get it in a comfortable position. I know most cars have adjustable steering columns, and please don't go and adjust it all the way up unless you're a really tall person. It's not necessary. Get it in a comfortable position so as it's not obscuring any of your instrumentation. So how far should I be sitting from the steering? Don't go all the way back where your legs are fully extended and out straight when you have to depress the clutch in a manual vehicle, okay? Try and move forward in a comfortable position when this leg is extended or the clutch is depressed completely, that you still have a slight bend in your knee. In terms of the steering, your arms, if you extend your arms and you hang them over the steering wheel like this, they can move over comfortably. And then once again, please do not adopt this position where you're lying down and driving like this. It's not good, and I'm going to explain to you right now why. If you have your seatbelt on, okay, and you are lying down in that position, and you happen to be in an accident, what happens is you will be going underneath the safety belt and underneath the airbag, and unfortunately they'll have to scratch you off the foot pedals in the footwell.
And now it's time for Hannes Krobler to take the Land Rover and Land Cruiser off-road.
The Land Cruiser is a legend when it comes to overlanding, tough 4x4 conditions, and so on. And it didn't earn this reputation by swanning around Sandton shopping centres. Based on a well-proven ladder frame chassis and with a load capacity of 1.1 tonnes, the 5-seater 79 gets all the old school tricks in the book. The powerful V6 engine is augmented by the low-range transfer case and 3 lockers. The center, rear and front differentials can be manually locked 100%. So in theory, as long as one wheel is in contact with terra firma, the cruiser will keep on moving. In off-roading, good wheel articulation equals more wheels on the ground, which means forward momentum can be maintained. And although the cruiser's solid front and rear axles may not ultimately have the most articulation on the planet, it certainly has plenty enough of it to bolster the cruiser's off-roading capabilities. On a tight and technical 4x4 track like the one at Base 4, the only real hassle for the Land Cruiser is its long wheelbase. At over 5 meters long, it doesn't like sharp ridges. For instance, on this very tough obstacle, the Toyota wasn't a happy camper. It got hung up on the ridge. But you'd probably never find a double cab Land Cruiser 79 on a track like this to start with. For typical overlanding or workhorse applications, this Land Cruiser 79 has plenty 4x4 firepower to go anywhere, anytime. And on a gravel road, it really comes into its own. The Defender doesn't have 3 locking differentials, nor does it have a herd of wild horses under the bonnet like the Cruiser. Instead, it relies on electronic traction control, plenty of wheel articulation, bucket loads of clearance, and a very torquey turbo diesel engine to do the job. And it does a darn fine job of it too. The engine makes a lot of torque where you need it most, low down in the rev range. Combined with the low range transfer case, which features some really low ratios, you can crawl this Landy up or down just about any obstacle at a snail's pace. As soon as a wheel loses grip, the driver simply has to keep the power tap on, and then the electronics sort out the rest. It really works surprisingly well. Wheel articulation is also outstanding. As we've said before, wheels in contact with terra firma means forward momentum can be maintained. And the Landy gets this job done quite brilliantly. In addition, the Defender's approach and departure angles are also good. So overall, the Landy is hard to fault from an off-roading point of view. Another benefit is the old school design. Here you can actually look out of the driver's window without too much trouble and see exactly where that right front wheel is heading. After a few attempts, the Landy even conquered that very steep ridge that caused the longer Cruiser some headaches. On a gravel road, the Land Rover, just like the Cruiser, just makes so much sense. On a road like this, you just can't understand why people say the Defender is dynamically flawed. It just feels right. But then, when you hit the tar road again, the idiosyncrasies just become more apparent. This, the Land Roverettes would claim, is exactly what makes the Defender so special. It's special in a way that only a Defender can be special.
Land Rover owners are passionate about their vehicles, and I can understand why. But if I have to put my money on the table, I think I'll go for the all-rounder. That's a Land Cruiser.
Well, folks, that's it for this week. Next week, Hannes gets all fancy pants in a Mercedes-Benz GL, and we do a follow-up on the Daihatsu Terios for you. And in the meantime, please guys, keep left, pass right. Catch all the latest motoring news in Car and Leisure Wheels magazines. If you want more information about that 4x4 show, find us on Facebook. There you will also find more information about that 4x4 trips in conjunction with Leisure Wheels magazine.